Oh, Canada. Welcome back to another edition of the Canadian Citizen Journal. I'm your host, alias Tagai. Well, we got major bombshells going down, and it's definitely showing that Beijing is out to get Carney elected. This is going to be kind of just a overrun of the report, the actual presser that was given on the election interference. And then I'm going to show you a few other things that are kind of popping up on X, on a bunch of different other independent media. And hopefully I have time at the end of the video to show you the difference between propaganda and real news. Now, let's start off. I'm not going to play the whole thing. I'm just going to go straight to the questions on this. It's a security task force. And we'll deal with the actual questions and kind of break it apart from there. Let's dive right in.
Thank you, merci beaucoup. We'll turn to questions now. We'll start with Janice McGregor, CBC.
Now, this is CBC. Listen to how she words the question. This is all about Beijing, China, helping Mark Carney get elected. Listen to her question. This is propaganda.
Good morning, everyone. I want to ask a question about the kind of briefings that your group is involved with the particular parties. I mean, you gave us an example of one that happened, I guess it was just yesterday, about this particular attack that you're reporting today. But I'm curious whether this information exchange also concerns intelligence information that may have been collected about particular candidates. I'll give you an example. Last week, there was a Conservative candidate in Etobicoke North that was removed, and there's information in the public domain that this individual has ties to the BJP. Is this something that would have been discussed with the Conservative Party as an exchange of information in the context of election safety related briefings? When you see who the nominated candidates are that are running, if your agencies have information about them that is raising a national security flag, is that something that is discussed then with the political parties during these information exchanges?
The Conservatives got wind, dropped them like a hot potato. The biggest concern facing Canadians is the fact that what about Paul Chang, who Carney refused to fire? Backed him up saying it was a teachable moment and I stand behind him. And then 15 minutes after the RCMP put out a presser saying, we are looking into this, possible charges and election interference. Literally 15 minutes, people, after that bombshell drop from the RCMP, Paul Chang resigned. Till this day, Carney has not spoke about it. He stood behind him. It's all in the questions. This is what CTV, CBC, and the rest of these bought and paid propaganda arms will air. It makes it seem like Conservatives bad, when in actuality we still have 11 Liberal MPs who are running again that are all involved in foreign interference. Let's move on.
Thanks. I'll start and then I'll turn it over to Vanessa. So the decision as to who stands as a candidate in any general election is the purview of the party entirely. Vanessa, is there anything you'd like to add?
Certainly. So thank you for the question. So as we've mentioned at these briefings before, the site task force, all of the members are very much committed to making sure that we share with all of the parties in a very nonpartisan way information that can be relevant to them in terms of the intents and activities of foreign actors with regards to this democratic process. That being said, site is not in the business or a line of activity of vetting candidates. And so as Lorianne said, the choices of any of the parties to put forward their nominees is entirely within their domain. And the briefings that we have had with them have been related to the threat landscape in general of the foreign state actors, as well as helping those parties and candidates to protect themselves in terms of potential threats for violent extremist groups. And that relates to the candidate security program that we also spoke about last week. Thank you.
Okay, so not about those matters. My other question is just more about a comparison between what we learned subsequently at the inquiry about the previous election and orchestrated attacks against, I believe it was particular Conservative ridings last time that sort of concerns came out eventually.
See how she did it again? Conservatives. These people know there are 10 MPs that are MPs right now that were put in their positions thanks to Chinese influence and interference. This is called propaganda. Just remember, your tax dollars are paying her wages, people.
After the fact about the 2021 election versus this time now. If you had to consider how things unfolded in the last election versus now, how safe is our vote this time so far?
Vanessa, do you want to start with that?
Sure. I think there's a number of things to keep in mind that are different from the last couple of general elections and now. And one is these briefings. So the fact that we're coming before you every week to talk to you about the various tactics and techniques that could be used during the general election is a huge part of how we're equipping Canadians to be able to, for example, as Bridget just spoke about, assess the information ecosystem and be able to identify in particular disinformation campaigns. Again, the role of SITE has significantly evolved since the last two general elections. As you're aware, we have been stood up for by-elections since 2023, a total of 12 by-elections so far. So in each of those instances, we have had an enhanced monitoring, which allows us to be alert to the types of activities that could happen during this election. And that's why you saw such a robust discussion in our first tech briefing of the threat landscape and what we expected to see, and why the themes in these briefings have been over the types of activities in a range of domains that we might be concerned about during this general election.
Maybe if I...
I'm going to skip ahead a little wee bit. This other guy just talks verbal diarrhea anyways.
Jim Bronskill, Canadian Press.
Good morning. Concerning the operation against Mr. Carney that you outlined today, could you provide us with a little bit more information? There's some in the materials, thank you. But about the intent and nature of the information that was amplified online.
So maybe I'll start and then I'll turn it over to Larissa. So I don't think we can speak to the intent. I will say that the PRC should not be trying to shape the opinions of Canadians, especially during an election period. But it was the RRM who was involved in this. So Larissa, maybe you'd like to add to that?
Sure, thank you. I agree with Lori-Ann that we're not going to speak to the intent. I think at our first tech brief we spoke about China in general and how we see them behaving in the Canadian ecosystem and in other elections. In this case, as we've noted in the news release in the background, there were contrasting positive and negative narratives. I think what is important for all of us to take away from the information being presented today is that intelligence links this account to entities of the People's Republic of China, and so whether that's the narratives about Mr. Carney, any other public figure in Canada, or anything else, it's important for Canadians to understand this link that has been covert.
Concerning the timeline, you indicate that a Liberal representative was briefed, I believe, yesterday. It was first noticed March 10th and March 25th, and I think there's a suggestion that the narrative was amplified online, but sometime after that. If you could give us an indication as to why it would take that long to bring this to the attention formally of the Liberal representative. Maybe there's a good reason for that, but perhaps you could explain the timeline there.
Sure, happy to. So these were the two spikes of activity that we saw. March 10th was outside of the Liberal Party leadership campaign, and so site was not active in providing advice at that time. In terms of the spike on March 25th, that's when we first noticed it, and then we monitored the activity to be able to confidently identify the source and the connection, and that was brought to the attention of the panel last week, and the Liberal Party was briefed shortly thereafter.
Ryan Tumulty, Toronto Star.
Yeah, good morning. You said in your opening remarks in the press release that you don't believe that this campaign was enough to influence Canada's ability to have a free and fair election because it was only on one social media platform, and I guess a more niche social media platform as it is. I'm wondering if you guys have identified a threshold for inaccurate or inauthentic material spreading on social media. Is it 2 platforms? Is it 3? Like, what is the threshold you guys have identified where you feel it would breach the free and fair election standard?
Sure. This is the core function of the panel of 5, so the protocol that's set up. And it's not a simple arithmetic calculation. It's not number of platforms. It'll be a range of things from its potential impact, whether it's in a single riding or across the country, the number of people likely influenced, how convincing is it? It's really like 5, 6 dimensions to it. So the threshold is really about nuanced judgment, and that's the judgment that the panel will be making.
I think maybe the other piece I would add to that is it is difficult for us to understand how many Canadians may have seen these narratives because of the platform that it is, and the posts, Larissa, correct me if I'm wrong, were posted in simplified Chinese. And so they have a large base of monthly active users, but it's unclear to us how many Canadians might have seen the narrative. So it was important for us to flag it, but it's difficult to gauge beyond that.
And then just
Now,
as a follow-up.
I'm just going to pause it right there, and I'm going to go over to this. Let's read this over, okay? In February 2023, the China Digital Times reported that social media posts from the Yalu Yemon account are frequently assigned to employees at Chinese state-owned enterprises to amplify a wider audience as part of their work duties. The site TF assesses that similar coordinated, inauthentic activity was likely at play in targeting of Mr. Carney on March 10th to 25th. The campaign received high levels of user engagement and views, with amplified articles about Mr. Carney receiving between 85,000 and 130,000 interactions, and an estimated 1 to 3 million views. This level of engagement on WeChat is high when compared to popular state media outlets like the People's Daily that average only 30,000 interactions per post. The articles posted in the Yulin Yomain account on March 25th were amplified in a coordinated and inauthentic way by a group of 30 smaller WeChat accounts that boosted the discoverability of the posts. This amplification occurred over the course of 4 days, keeping narratives about Mr. Carney in algorithmic feeds, albeit at a much lower engagement and views. Now, I'll break that down. What they do is, instead of having one great big loudspeaker that's very easy to detect, they split it between smaller accounts. The more small accounts there are amplifying this, the harder it is to trace, and it seems organic. They're saying 1 to 3 million off of a guesstimation, when in actuality, it's more likely 10 times that number. Reshares, reposts, reviews that aren't counted. I know, I deal with this with my platform. If somebody literally copies my video and shows it to their friends, I don't get the view. It doesn't count as a view, but they're showing it as a view. So if people in these businesses are literally replaying these videos to hosts over and over and over again. They're amplifying this without any detection being seen on the actual platform. Propaganda 101. This is propaganda, man. And I'm just so embarrassed that these people, like, why are you even holding these briefings then?
WeChat was identified in the campaign targeting Liberal candidate Chrystia Freeland and Michael Chong as well. I know in the last election it was identified in the Foreign Interference Commission as targeting voters. Both Aaron O'Toole and Kenny Chu, the local candidate in Richmond. I'm wondering what your interactions with this company have been, and also sort of what recommendation you would have to Canadians who may still look at WeChat as a reliable source of news and information.
Larissa, can I invite you to take that question?
We've engaged with Tencent on a number of occasions and at various levels, and we've done so in collaboration with our colleagues. They are the kind of conversation that we have with the other platforms as well, where where our approach is to point out the activity that we're witnessing that we believe contravene their terms of service, and ask them to turn their attention to it. We do not ask the platforms to take specific action other than to pay attention to this material, because it's not the government's role to be policing these platforms or telling private companies how to behave. But they have their own terms of service, and if we see something, we ask them to compare. And that's been the discussion with Tencent as well, and will continue to be.
And on whether to accept it as a reliable source of information?
There are so many platforms out there, so many sources of information. When we see something specific in the context of site, the purpose of these briefings is to bring that to the attention of Canadians. And we hope that we all learn from this also what the sort of more general principles are that we should apply to our consumption of social media. And today we're providing a very important piece of information about the #1 most popular account on WeChat.
I see 2 questioners in the room, the Globe and Mail and Parliament today online, and 9 minutes on the clock. So I think we can make it, but we'll start with Peter. Go ahead.
Thanks. Peter Mauser from the Hill Times. Does the government have any specific plan or ability to counter disinformation that's sent to Canadian voters who speak only Chinese or primarily Chinese?
Products.
Yeah, so for Canadians who speak only Chinese, we have available to them advice on how to ensure that they are not being subject to mis and disinformation. This has been translated into 10 languages, and I believe 2 types of Chinese are part of that product base.
Those products are available on the Democratic Institution's website, including.
So I take it that would be like a little warning label that pops up on the bottom, the stuff that nobody reads. So in other words, they're not doing anything.
A toolkit.
I'm just wondering, you mentioned before these briefings are a big part of the work that you're doing to try and fight back against this stuff, but if no one in here is publishing in the Chinese language, then how does that community get these messages that what they're seeing on their screens might be disinformation?
There are other ways that we get out the word to Chinese diaspora groups. There is, for instance, the Digital Citizenship Initiative, which has been in place for about 6 years. There have been over 150 different projects. Some of them are targeted, or they're projects that are with minority language groups, and their purpose is to promote things like digital citizen literacy and critical media literacy as well. So that would be a way to get out the word in the community generally. In addition, there's also different parts of the government, it happens to be public safety, have good connections with different diaspora groups, and they have those conversations as well.
What a load of
Chris
horsepower.
Bernardi, National Post.
I just want to come back to the content. My last Mandarin class was 13 years ago, so I used Google to translate them. And from the examples that are in the backgrounder, it appears that the content is mostly promoting Mr. Carney's strength. I think the language that it says is United States meets Canada's tough opponent. And so, Ms. Gladzow, you mentioned something about negative and positive in the background. I didn't see that, but it appears to me from what's in here that the content is, I don't know if it's promoting Mr. Carney, but it seems very cast him in a positive light. Is that broadly what this content that you've seen, that this particular campaign, is that what it seemed to be doing overall?
This guy doesn't get paid by your tax dollars. Do you notice how the question is an actual question?
We monitored over the period of time specified, and we saw positive and negative narratives. I think a really important aspect of the work that we do in site and in these briefings is to not further amplify information that is out there at the interest, at the behest of a foreign government. And so, there were positive and negative.
What?
So then what would be the point of the campaign if they're both undermining him and promoting him?
Look at the stupid look on her face.
So I mean, I think maybe disinformation is one thing, but this kind of coordinated inauthentic behavior is just an attempt to pollute the digital environment and try to shape opinions one way or the other. I think, and Vanessa will correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's fair to say the PRC is party agnostic. Like this isn't an attempt one way or another, but it is to kind of sow confusion and discord in the digital environment.
I would say also that our mandate isn't to first understand the point of a foreign information manipulation operation. It's to identify it, to confirm that it is coordinated, inauthentic behavior, that it is state-backed, and to ensure that Canadians are informed that is happening.
Vanessa, is there something you'd like to add?
So, now I'm sorry, but in other words, this whole weekly, I'm going to call it propaganda that they're doing, doesn't do anything except for bring up points that echo whatever their prerogative is, which is in this case, put Carney's name on the front pages again. That's what I'm getting out of this. Let me know what you think. Let me know in the comments. But as far as I'm concerned, that right there just pretty much says all of this is propaganda. Why are they even saying anything then? I mean, if it's pro and negative and it balances out, then why even say anything? Because it doesn't. It doesn't balance out. And now they've become another loudspeaker promoting what Beijing wants, which is putting Carney in the headlines. Unbelievable.
Said it all, but to echo, the People's Republic of China is largely party agnostic in terms of its approach, and certainly as the information ecosystem is changing, then that can account for positive narratives in one instance and negative in the other.
Thank you.
That is a perfect political non-answer.
We'll turn to our phone lines to two questioners. Stephen Chase, Globe and Mail.
Hi, Steve here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to ask if you could give us a copy of these articles that were, provide copies to the media of these articles that were circulating so we could further analyze them, because as Chris said, they seem to be largely promotional and positive towards Mr. Carney. So I'd like to ask you as well to explain what you mean by, in layman's language, amplifying narratives in a coordinated and inauthentic way. What does that mean in layman's language?
Sure. So you can imagine how you behave on social media. You see something, you like it, you write a comment on it, and over time, a story can spread if it's popular, or if it doesn't, it dies. We're all familiar with the concept of something going viral, something spreading very, very fast, and through digital analysis, we can see what is the mechanism of that speed of spread. Who is doing the spreading. And so when we talk about coordinated and inauthentic behavior, we see things, for instance, like the same headline appearing across multiple media sources, foreign media sources usually, using the exact same headline and being posted within minutes, if not seconds, of each other. So that's not a typical organic kind of spread of information. The other thing that we can do is look at who the account owners are, who are spreading, who are reposting, and we can tell from digital footprint and mapping the networks whether these are likely to be real people or, in fact, a mechanism like my colleague Bridget spoke about today, bot farms or AI-generated spread. So that's a couple of examples of what we would call coordinated and inauthentic behavior.
Which I described
my follow-up
earlier.
question is, you keep repeating that phrase about how the PRC is party agnostic, but the next part of that often repeated maxim is that it picks candidates it thinks will promote its vision, and it will promote those candidates. So in this case, the information you've given us talks about responsible and decent Mark Carney, a tough prime minister from Canada, all these things. Are you saying that when you tell us that this was intended to influence Chinese Canadian communities in Canada and mold perceptions about him, that you can't determine if they were positive perceptions or negative perceptions? You don't have that ability?
Good question.
Vanessa or Larissa?
So I think we want to be careful to emphasize the point of sharing this information with Canadians. As Larissa mentioned, and in Bridget's remarks, the important part of information that we're sharing with you today is to be clear with Canadians that the account that has made these posts is linked to the People's Republic of China and to the Chinese Communist Party in particular, and that intelligence has provided that there is a concerted effort behind that entity within the Communist Party to spread and manipulate the narrative that Canadians are seeing. And so we should all keep in mind that a hallmark of democracy is to be able to have such a debate during an election period, and it is for Canadians to have that debate unfettered by the influence of a foreign state.
Did that make any sense to you? That sounded like complete verbal diarrhea. Especially when I just showed this document. Literally, this is tactics, techniques, and procedures, TTPs. I mean, this right off the site, which is who these are. That's who these people are. And I literally just listed, like, this is what they know. So if they know that it's been split up into smaller divisions, they're saying that they can't monitor those smaller divisions to say whether or not it's organic or inorganic, when they literally know that it's not organic at all in nature. This whole press conference is starting to look like literally a gong show produced by the Liberal Party. You can't make this stuff up.
I'll squeeze in the last question. Palak Mangat, Parliament Today.
Hi, I'm hoping you can hear me okay.
Yes.
I take your point about this kind of being nuanced judgment, but you said it's not likely, in saying that it's not likely to impact the ability for a free and fair election. Can you just be a little bit more specific in what makes you confident in saying that even? And, is there thought to how this could impact the results of the specific riding, or is that just out of sight's bailiwick here?
I think maybe I'd start with, so part of it is that it is contained to a very specific social media platform, and that Canadians have the ability to get information, get information about their vote from a variety of sources. So it's not kind of a monolithic approach. And so the panel felt that it was important, and as did CITE, that we come forward and share this information, both because of the level of engagement on this one platform, but also, as Vanessa had said, the link of this particular account to the PRC. That being said, there's no evidence to suggest at the moment that it has any impact on how people may choose to cast their vote. Larissa?
And I think even less of an impact now that we are shining a light on it, and that's an important thing to take away from today's briefing.
Now, how do they figure that? When they're purposely misleading us in saying that there was positive and negative information, but they can't prove the negative information when everything that we're seeing is that they're pushing Carney to win. And then they get out here and now they're saying, well, because we're making this note, it's noted. How do you figure that now you haven't just manipulated not just the Chinese diaspora, but Canada as a whole in watching what they're saying? Literally. This is like the deep chapters of fascism and socialism propaganda. The government itself becomes the manipulated tool either because they're too stupid to know they're doing it or they're doing it on purpose. Now, I'm not accusing anything of anybody. Take from this what you will. You can watch the entire video. I post everything down in the links, but how can you even say that when all of the information that we see and we've been given that they know of is promoting Carney? They've just become another loudspeaker. And I'm going to show you how once we're done here.
And as a follow-up, are there any other incidents on CITE's radar involving other party leaders, and where are those at in being addressed, and what types of recourse might they have?
So CITE remains committed to sharing information that we believe Canadians need to have in order to defend themselves against disinformation. That, as my colleagues have said, is a way that we are equipping Canadians through these briefings, but also through the products that are available on the Democratic Institution's website to be able to assess for themselves information.
Okay. Then she turns politician full-fledged right out. Okay, let's just dive into this right now. Okay. So, this is how propaganda works. Now, let's just look very carefully. This is CTV's headline. Elections Task Force detects Chinese information operation targeting Carney. CBC. Security officials report a Beijing-linked online operation focused on Carney. Global News. Carney targeted by Chinese WeChat operation in Canada. The Globe and Mail. Election interference watchdog detects Beijing effort to influence Chinese Canadians on Carney. BNN. Bloomberg. Elections Task Force detects Chinese information operation targeting Carney. All the propaganda is pushing in order to favor Carney in all of Canada's eyes, when in actual effect, the titles should read, Chinese government boosted Carney posts on popular social media. Thank you, National Post, who isn't on the payroll of the Liberal Party. All the previous ones I read get checks from your tax dollars to keep them alive. Do you see the difference? They have just pushed propaganda. This entire site presser is actually more propaganda to get Carney elected. It's literally right there in the obvious, but 99% of people don't know it because they just read. It's click. It's all click. They read the actual big print. They don't read the article. And trust me, I've read a few of those articles, CBC TV. That is absolute garbage. At least the Globe was somewhat responsible. Somewhat. But these are all bought and paid for media. And then you've got The Sun. This is a real headline. China actively promoting Carney's Liberal campaign. That's what's actually going on. But the propaganda arm, they're doing clickbait. So now everybody that just reads the titles in the big letters is going, oh, wow, I guess they don't want Carney to be elected because that's the way they're worded. Propaganda. This is why I need you to like, share, and subscribe. Not just me, other small media outlets like Toronto Sun, like National Post, etc., etc. All of this, CTV, CBC, all of it. I mean, really? Election Task Force detects Chinese information operation targeting Carney? That is a one-way street of propaganda. It's bullshit. Especially when we have stuff like this that is right in the open. Sam Cooper, retired police executive who joined Chinese international school flagged in Canada's election interference inquiry, replaces Paul Chang as Liberal candidate. Where's the media? The bought and paid for media aren't talking about this after Paul Chang literally quit in disgrace for what he did. They bring on a candidate that's even worse. More blatant information. It's all there in the open. Liberal Markham Union candidate who replaces bounty hunter Paul Chang salutes the People's Republic of China flag in 2016 at Queen's Park. Both Paul and Peter were YRP Toronto police officers. Take a close look. Who else do you see in this picture at the bottom right-hand side of that poll? Oh, one of the, if not the worst premiers ever. Like literally, take your taxpayer dollars, throw it to the wind, win. A disgrace. Liberal. They've infiltrated every aspect of the Liberal Party. We can just keep going on. Here, Guran, director of 105.9 Yes, My Radio, a station that spread fear about Kenny Chiu because of his proposed foreign agent registration legislation, attends the 10th Forum on Global Chinese Language Media in 2019, hosted by the Overseas Chinese Affairs. In other words, the government of China. It's right there in the open. Check this one out. Liberal Parm Bain celebrates with the Canadian Alliance of Chinese Associations, a United Front group. For those of you who don't know, United Front is the propaganda arm of the China ruling party. This is the group that they put together that goes out all over the world in order to get involved in changing elections, paying off people from ads, pamphlets. They're in everything. Now they're into AI, and they're on every single platform. And I can tell you straight out my TikTok, when I broke the story about Paul Chang, I said China and liberals. That was bad on my part. I've learned. They deplatformed me. I found a loophole that I ended up using to bypass that. And I still could get deplatformed, even though on today's, when I did my Canadian news in a clip, I used Beijing instead of China. But I'm already on their radar. I'm already being deplatformed for just trying to get you the news. Just the facts. Sorry. And Consul General Yang Shu Baines beat Conservative Kenny Chiu in the 2021 election. Chiu had introduced foreign agent legislation. Bain insists China didn't help. Now, I'm just going to play you this short little clip just as a refresher to what, like, this is disgusting. And this happened with zero media talking about it.
Former Conservative MP Kenny Chiu laid out his suspicion he lost the 2021 election because of interference from China.
My government is not there to protect me when it's needed.
And he did it sitting across from the Liberal MP who defeated him and current member of the Ethics Committee looking into that very issue.
So the MP who ends up losing his seat because of Chinese propaganda and infiltration within trying every means necessary to stop a foreign registry, loses his seat to Baines, who is known to have been helped by that same Communist Party from China to get him elected. What does the Liberal Party do? They literally appoint him to the Ethics Committee looking into election interference. Can you imagine sitting down at this table, trying to bring forward what's going on and how seriously infiltrated our system is, right across from the guy that they helped, and then the Liberal Party themselves appointed as the Ethics Committee looking into foreign interference? Listen to this. Listen to this.
Chiu says Beijing spread propaganda about him being anti-Chinese within the Chinese-Canadian community.
They target specific candidates such as myself.
Chiu stopped short of saying Baines should not be on the committee, while for his part, Baines had little time for questions.
You know what? I have to... Now, you would think there would be a pile of reporters there after this embarrassing, this is just beyond, it's beyond the pale. This is stuff you read in books. It's supposed to be fiction. This is Canada. Look at all the reporters.
Catch a flight, I'm sorry. Can we ask you why you sat on the committee even though there seems to be conflict of interest for you to be here?
There's no conflict at all.
Do you believe you won because of foreign influence?
Nope, not at all.
One reporter.
Here in Square.
The seat in BC.
One reporter, people. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. So let's just go back to the reality of the entrapment that the Liberal Party was trying to pull on Poilievre. He wouldn't be able to talk about any of this if he was to actually have gone in for that NSICOP. We'll take it right from his mouth. Listen closely.
3 questions. One, on the security clearance, I've already had a security clearance. What I will not do is have, because I was a cabinet minister, so I've already been cleared. What I will not do is commit to the oath of secrecy that the Liberals want to impose on me. They don't want me to be able to speak about these matters. So they bring me into a dark room and they'll say, well, we're going to give you a little bit of breadcrumbs of intel, and then we'll tell you can't talk about any of this stuff anymore. So, for example, if they'd given me some kind of cursory briefing on China, then they would say, oh, you can't go talk about the fact that Mark Carney went off to Beijing and had secret meetings where he had secret talks with top government banking officials, after which a government bank gave his company a $250,000 loan, a loan that his company still owes, and a company in which he's still invested, meaning that he is the most compromised and conflicted leader our country has ever seen. He did this after seeing that China had interfered in 2 consecutive elections. He did this after seeing China take 2 of our people hostage. He did this after knowing that China had made incursions into our waters. How will Mark Carney ever protect Canada against Beijing's incursions into our territory, its interference in our country, or it's taking our jobs and our industrial base away when he owes them so much? And I won't be silenced on any of those issues. I look forward to hearing Mark Carney's answers, and I hope that Canadian media actually starts asking him some questions about the nature of Brookfield's holdings. It really is incredible. The media has had some of this information, and I look forward to them actually asking questions. We have a guy who's prime minister who's never been elected to anything. He's the most unscrutinized leader our country has ever had, and he's by far the most conflicted. We're putting it out ourselves from now on, by the way. This is a guy whose company denied coal miners his insurance arm.
I love this. He's putting it out himself, and he is, because like I just showed you, the propaganda arm. It's literally right there. It's right obvious, but like I said, 99% of Canadians have no idea. This is what they've grown in the world to see, and now they're so busy working, so busy trying to pay bills, that it's even harder for them to do any type of research, to actually sit down with the newspaper and read. And be able to say, wait a minute, that's not right. Now it's all click, 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 click.
Denied coal miners their payments when they were dying of black lung in the States. They lost in court. The company lost in court. How is he ever going to stand up for working class people when that's the track record he has? He used renovictions, predatory financialization of real estate. How is he ever going to fix our housing crisis when that is his background? I've said in the past that he's just as bad as Justin Trudeau. Frankly, he's much worse, and he's much more conflicted, and he's going to be held accountable. On the debate, well, his excuses are changing.
So, welcome to China. I hate having to say it that way, but this is what we have become. And that's why I literally gave everything up and I started doing this show. To just try and get the truth out. Just the truth. Sorry. Just the truth. People need to see it. I'm on Spotify. If you're driving and you don't have, you can't actually watch, and I know that a lot of the YouTube and stuff, they'll automatically shut off. Spotify doesn't shut off. You can push play. You can listen to all of this. I'm on X. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Facebook. And I've had lots of other people telling me I got to get on more different social media. And I will. It's taken me a long time to be able to learn all of the different, because all of these medias have different functions. And then once you build up viewers, they open doors for this. And it's a big learning curve. I'm not a tech guy. This has all been a learning curve. This has been a year of studying and just trying to do everything I can to get out there and just get the truth out. That's all I wanted to do. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I'm going to try and knock one more off today. I was working on kind of part and part. Daniel Smith had a presser. Again, it's really important that people hear this. Make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. If you are subscribed, please punch that notification bell so you don't miss any future episodes. And if you're willing to donate, every little bit helps. I don't make any money on any of these platforms. Everything I do comes out of pocket. Until next time, you've been watching the Canadian Citizen Journal. I'm Alias Tagai. Stay informed.